Good morning. I'm Janae Norman.
And I'm Kenneth Moten. Here are the top 5 things to know this Thursday. Number 1, the final day of impeachment hearings this week.
Today, House lawmakers will hear from 2 more officials who may be the final impeachment witnesses. They'll follow testimony from Ambassador Gordon Sondland, who admitted there was a quid pro quo to pressure Ukraine.
But Sondland said no one ever told him that $400 million in military aid was part of the quid pro quo. He only presumed it was. Our live coverage of today's hearing begins at 8:30 a.m. Eastern.
Number 2, the racism investigation at Syracuse University. 4 students have been suspended after a verbal assault on a black student.
Meanwhile, a joint task force, including the FBI, is now investigating an anti-Semitic email threat made against a faculty member. The school's chancellor says reports of a racist manifesto sent to students' phones was likely a hoax.
Students walked out of the chancellor's speech last night. They say he's ignoring their calls to address diversity and hate, and they are demanding that he resign.
We're turning to the weather for number 3. A powerful winter-like storm is pounding the southwest. The system has produced heavy hail stretching from downtown Los Angeles to Phoenix and sparked widespread flash flooding.
And check out what happened overnight in Flagstaff, Arizona, a blanket of freshly fallen snow. Meanwhile, in Northern California, some people in the middle of the precautionary power shutoffs will get their electricity turned back on today. That's because higher humidity is lowering the risk for wildfires. PG&E says it's been able to scale back drastically on the number of planned shutoffs, but the company says it's closely watching wind speeds.
Number 4, Apple has canceled the premiere of its first major original movie.
The Banker, a drama starring Samuel L. Jackson, was pulled one day before its debut at a film festival in Los Angeles. It's based on a true story about 2 entrepreneurs who recruited a white man to be the face of their real estate business in the 1950s.
A relative of one of the men reportedly raised concerns about the movie. Apple has not elaborated.
And finally, number 5, new figures show most Americans are staying put.
Census data released yesterday shows just under 10% of Americans moved in the last year, the lowest figure since the agency started tracking our moves 70 years ago.
One reason cited is aging. The country's getting older, and older people don't move as often. But the numbers also show millennials are staying in place. Their lack of movement is blamed on high rents and low-wage jobs.
Also, no one really likes to move.
No one.
Good morning. Let's get right to the big story. 2 more impeachment witnesses going before the cameras today after hearing testimony from President Trump's dealmaker on Ukraine.
EU Ambassador Gordon Sondland confirmed what the president previously denied, the existence of a quid pro quo. The front page of this morning's New York Times, you see there, quote Sondland saying, "We followed the president's orders."
Sondland also told lawmakers that other top officials knew what was going on, but the president and his allies are pushing back.
It comes as we learn new details about when Ukraine knew that its military aid had been frozen. ABC's Megan Tavrizian has more from Capitol Hill. Megan, good morning.
Good morning, Janae and Kenneth. Even though Ambassador Sondland donated $1 million to President Trump's campaign, the president is now distancing himself from the ambassador.
The most anticipated witness in the impeachment inquiry living up to expectations, delivering the most explosive details yet.
Who would benefit from an investigation of the Bidens?
I assume President Trump would benefit.
There we have it.
U.S. Ambassador to the European Union Gordon Sondland confirming there was a quid pro quo regarding Ukraine and implicating several top officials, including Vice President Mike Pence and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo.
Everyone was in the loop. It was no secret.
He named names.
Many people.
And, well, Secretary Pompeo?
Yes.
And Acting Chief of Staff Mulvaney?
Yes.
Republicans hammering Sondland on whether the president explicitly told the ambassador aid was contingent on the investigations.
Nobody else on this planet told you that Donald Trump was tying aid to these investigations. Is that correct?
I think I already testified.
No, answer the question.
Yes.
And new this morning, details on the timeline on when Ukraine knew aid was being withheld. Top Pentagon official Laura Cooper testifying the Ukrainians were aware that the U.S. was withholding military aid as early as July 25th, the same day of that phone call between President Trump and Ukrainian President Zelensky. This contradicts the Republican argument that Ukraine didn't know about the delay in aid, so there couldn't be a quid pro quo. President Trump declaring victory, seizing on a small part of Sondland's testimony.
And now, here's my response. that he gave. I want nothing. That's what I want from Ukraine. That's what I said. I want nothing. I said it twice.
And the timing of when President Trump told this to Ambassador Sondland matters here because it was after the White House officially found out about the whistleblower complaint. Kenneth, Janae.
And Megan, looking back at that hearing, really, I feel like there was two statements that really stuck out there. And we mentioned one of, we followed the president's order, and the other one we've reported is Sondland saying that everyone was in the loop. So break that down for us about what he meant by everyone was in the loop.
Yeah, of course, Kenneth. Ambassador Sondland really named names yesterday, particularly mentioning Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and also Vice President Mike Pence. He said that the State Department is not letting him get into those emails at the State Department, but he did bring an email that showed an exchange between him and Secretary Pompeo talking about breaking up the logjam regarding security. And then he said that he personally talked to the Vice President about his concern of delaying aid to Ukraine. We have a clip. Let's listen to the testimony from yesterday about that exchange.
But I think I spoke up at some point late in the meeting and said, it looks like everything is being held up until these statements get made, and that's my, personal belief.
And Vice President Pence just nodded his head?
Again, I don't recall any exchange or where he asked me any questions. I think it was sort of a duly noted.
Well, he didn't say, Gordon, what are you talking about?
No, he did not.
He didn't say, what investigations?
He did not.
And Vice President Pence and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo have both denied these claims. Kenneth, Janae.
All right, Megan, thank you. And a new poll from the swing state of Wisconsin shows 40% of registered voters believe the president should be impeached and removed from office. That's down 4% from last month. The drop in support was seen in both parties. The poll was conducted between November 13th and 17th before this week's testimony.
New subpoenas have been issued stemming from the investigation into two of Rudy Giuliani's associates who were charged with campaign finance violations. Sources tell ABC News the subpoenas from federal prosecutors in New York were sent to a lobbying firm and to a super PAC that's backing President Trump's re-election campaign. Those same prosecutors have been investigating Giuliani for allegedly violating lobbying and campaign finance laws. His two associates have also been linked to the pressure campaign against Ukraine.
Now to the big debate in Atlanta. The Democrats running for president facing off in another fiery debate clashing over health care, foreign policy, and taxes. But ABC's Trevor Ault reports all 10 candidates did agree on one thing.
After the historic day of impeachment proceedings in Washington, 10 of the top Democratic presidential candidates sparred over who deserves to challenge President Trump.
We cannot simply be consumed by Donald Trump, because if we are, you know what? We're going to lose the election.
The candidates largely agreed on impeaching the president.
We have to establish the principle, no one is above the law.
It is a criminal enterprise engaged in by the president, from what we heard today, the vice president, the secretary of state, and the chief of staff.
Donald Trump doesn't want me to be the nominee. That's pretty clear.
Former Vice President Biden was asked if he would support a criminal investigation of Trump after he leaves office.
Look, I would not direct my Justice Department like this president does. I'd let them make their independent judgment.
There was plenty of disagreement on other issues, including the legalization of marijuana.
This week, I hear him literally say that I don't think we should legalize marijuana. I thought you might have been high when you said it. and let me tell you.
And the candidates once again clashed on health care.
The reason I insist on Medicare for all who want it as the strategy to deliver on that goal we share of universal health care is that is something that, as a governing strategy, we can unify the American people around.
The fact is that right now, the vast majority of Democrats do not support Medicare for all. It couldn't pass the United States Senate right now.
But Biden is getting the most attention for his gaffe when talking about his support from Senator Carol Moseley Braun, saying the only black woman ever elected to the U.S. Senate endorses him. He said that with Senator Kamala Harris standing just feet away from him.
The only African-American woman that ever been elected to the United States Senate. A whole range of people.
No,
my point is
that's not true. The other one is here.
Biden clarified that he meant to say Braun was the first black woman to be elected to the Senate.
Look, the former vice president's team is going to say that he often has slips of the tongue and enjoys really strong support in the African-American community. But this is a moment in the campaign where the former vice president needs to be expanding his base. His numbers in the polls have been a little stagnant, and he needs to be growing his support.
This may have been the last time on stage for some of the candidates. Only 6 of the 10 have qualified for the next debate happening next month. Trevor Ault, ABC News, Atlanta.
All right, our thanks to Trevor. A former Louisiana State student has been sentenced to 5 years in prison for the hazing death of a fraternity pledge.
Matthew Naquin was convicted of negligent homicide for pressuring freshman Max Groover to consume so much alcohol he drank himself to death. At most, Naquin is expected to serve 2.5 years, but his term could be cut to less than a year with good behavior.
All right, a Georgia fisherman hoping to reel in some bass on Lake Lanier instead found a sunken minivan with a body inside. The sheriff's department says it's the body of a man who has been missing since last June. So far, investigators say they don't know how the van got into the lake or if foul play was involved.
Check out this video from New Jersey. An Amtrak train heading from Newark to Philadelphia Tuesday night wipes out a disabled car on the tracks. No one was inside. No one on the train was hurt. Several other vehicles were damaged by debris, as well as some of the cars on the train. The woman who'd been driving the destroyed car was charged with DWI.
We're hearing new details this morning about that wild airport chase earlier this week in Oklahoma City. It involved a 16-year-old burglary suspect who jumped from his plane and made a run for it. Here's ABC's David Curley.
Moments after this United flight arrived in Oklahoma City, watch a 16-year-old squeeze between the jetway and the aircraft and jump to the tarmac. Off he goes, running across that active tarmac. Within moments, workers realize what is happening and give chase. Authorities tell us the 16-year-old was being flown back from Houston to face a felony burglary charge. The teen got into the terminal running through a mechanical room, and a camera catches him in the distance as he drops from the roof of the terminal, just as his pursuers were getting close. The landing below didn't go well, ending the 15-minute chase, the 16-year-old breaking leg bones, and was not only taken into custody, but taken to the hospital for treatment. Oklahoma authorities say the 16-year-old will not be charged in that airport incident, but he does still face that felony burglary charge. David Curley, ABC News, Reagan National Airport.
Our thanks to David. And Cleveland Browns defensive end Myles Garrett is waiting to hear whether his suspension for last week's mayhem against Pittsburgh will be reduced.
The league heard Garrett's appeal yesterday. He's banned indefinitely for hitting Steelers quarterback Mason Rudolph in the head with Rudolph's own helmet. A decision on the appeal is expected by the end of the week.
Well, coming up, would you stay at a hotel room for $1 a night? What if everyone could see everything you were doing?
Oh, no, not at all. But first, the bombshell from Buckingham Palace. Queen Elizabeth's son, Prince Andrew, makes a highly unusual decision. New details on what could happen next. Welcome back. We turn overseas now to the historic move by Prince Andrew. He's stepping aside from his royal duties with the Queen's permission.
It follows his controversial interview about his friendship with sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. And now a new report says Buckingham Palace is bracing for Andrew to be subpoenaed. This morning, new fallout for Prince Andrew after his widely criticized interview about his relationship with accused sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein.
But you were staying at the house of a convicted sex offender.
It was a convenient place to stay.
The royal is now stepping back from his public duties, saying in a statement that his past association with Epstein has become a major disruption to my family's work, adding, "Therefore, I have asked Her Majesty if I may step back from public duties for the foreseeable future, and she has given her permission." The move being called unprecedented for the modern era. Prince Andrew no longer working for the palace means he will no longer receive public funds, but he does still have access to the Queen's private funds if she so chooses. Multiple sponsors have ended their relationship with the prince after his interview when he denied any sexual contact with an underage accuser.
I am not one to, as it were, hug, and public displays of affection are not something that I do.
But several British media outlets have published pictures like these of the prince, seeming to contradict his claim that he was not a partier. The 59-year-old maintains that despite multiple visits to several of Epstein's homes, he never saw any indication of unlawful conduct involving underage girls. And now, Britain's Daily Telegraph is reporting that Buckingham Palace is bracing for U.S. authorities to issue Prince Andrew a subpoena, requesting he provide testimony under oath about his friendship with Epstein. The Telegraph says the subpoena for Prince Andrew is imminent. Buckingham Palace declined to comment on that report.
All right, let's switch it up now and check our notifications.
Starting with a warning for bosses during the holiday season. Don't blame me, I'm just the messenger. More than half your employees are likely to be shopping online instead of working.
Snitch.
A new survey finds about 52% of people will be work shopping this season, and of those, 42% admit their productivity suffers. And that's our question of the day. Kenneth didn't want to ask, I guess.
No, it's because it's 44%. For some reason, you said 42%.
Oh.
But that is our question of the day. How much time do you spend shopping online at work? What about social media or other non-work-related browsing? How much is too much? Tell us what you think in the comments or tweet us at ABC News Live.
We won't tell your bosses.
But we just told the bosses.
Look, 44 to 42, you know what I mean. No one's sitting there doing the math. Enough of you are doing it.
Every percentage counts.
Yeah. We're sending heartfelt well wishes to Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip.
The royal couple celebrated their 72nd wedding anniversary on Wednesday. The royal family's official IG account marked the day with a black and white wedding snap from 1947, coupled with a recent photo of the happy couple today.
On the morning of their wedding, Philip made a life-changing promise that he's managed to keep 72 years later. According to at least one royal historian, Philip quit smoking that very day, and as far as anyone knows, he hasn't taken a puff since.
I'm sure the Queen's like, look, you're still here, you're still alive, you stopped the smoking, you can thank me.
Thank me later.
Hey, travelers in Japan now have a chance to stay at a hotel that offers one of its rooms for $1 per night. $1. But don't plan on having too much privacy.
But yeah, if you want to stay in hotel room number 8, you'll be living in your own version of The Truman Show. Your entire visit will be live streamed over the owner's YouTube channel. It's video only, so all conversations are private, just really nothing else. You are allowed to turn off the lights, and the bathroom is off limits.
Oh, thank goodness, the bathroom.
Right?
Off limits.
Yeah.
But I get to see you just
get to
in your bed.
Have to. Would you tune in? Ooh. Oh, right. Well, so many children in need are waiting for that special someone to give them the loving homes that they deserve.
And this morning, just 2 days before National Adoption Day, we're hearing the amazing story of one family opening their home to a child whose own loving home was slipping away. Will Gans has that story.
As families prepare to head home for the holidays, Carrie Bremer will set her family's Thanksgiving table for one more this year.
I fell in love with him instantly, and as she got sicker that year, I just thought, what is she gonna do?
The Massachusetts school teacher met Jake Manning and his single mother, Jean, more than 4 years ago. Carrie knew that Jean was battling terminal cancer. Carrie talked with her husband and 3 kids, and Carrie made Jean an offer, one mom to another.
If you need a backup plan for Jake, then our family is happy to make him part of our family. And she said, I'll sleep better tonight than I've slept in a long time.
Jake spent the next few years getting to know the Bremers, spending weekends and holidays with the family. Jake and Dave Bremer, fast friends.
When I first met him when he was back in Carrie's class, it was fun. But when we first decided to do this and I met him, it was, your dad? You're Dave the dad? And that was it. For a very long time, I was Dave the dad.
Last week, Jean took a nap after chemotherapy and didn't wake up. The single mom who loved Jake so much, gone in a heartbeat. But Carrie, Dave the dad, and their kids were ready.
Mom went to heaven. Queen is your mom.
She's your queen angel mom.
It's always in my heart. Yes, it loves me so much.
She did? Do you love her so much? Oh, why, thank you.
Carrie says the real hero is Jean, a mom who selflessly prepared her son for his future, a safe and loving home for the holidays.
We shared our boy, and she will live on here in this house.
Just an incredible story, incredible family there.
Yeah. Well, coming up, we'll tell you what to watch out for today.
Plus, the story of a pet cat found a long way from home after this. Here's what to watch out for today. Public impeachment hearings continue as the House Intelligence Committee will hear testimony from Fiona Hill, the former senior director for Europe and Russia for the National Security Council, and David Holmes, political counselor for the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine. The hearings begin at 9 Eastern. Our live coverage starts streaming at 8:30 right here on ABC News Live.
Meanwhile, President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump will present the National Medal of Arts and the National Humanities Medal in a White House ceremony. Plus, scientists are predicting a rare meteor shower. It should be visible late tonight over the eastern half of North America and all of South America.
And it's National Gingerbread Cookie Day. We celebrated earlier this morning on World News Now because gingerbread cookies are delicious. So good.
And finally, a cat from Oregon that was missing for 5 years has just been found in New Mexico. Sasha the cat was just flown to Portland to be reunited with its original owner, Victor.
The long-haired feline somehow wound up more than 1,100 miles away, wandering the streets of Santa Fe. Sasha is microchipped, so the shelter called Victor to set up the reunion.
Are you ready to take over your cat?
Yeah, yeah. Oh my God.
Sasha, here's Victor.
Hi! He looks thrilled! Look at him, guys!
I don't know if he's that thrilled, but Victor is. He says he thought Sasha might have been killed by coyotes. No one is sure how the cat actually ended up in New Mexico.
5 years is a long time for a cat to be gone.
I know. Thankfully, microchipped.
Yeah.
I hear a lot about that now. People just getting those pets microchipped. Is it costly?
It didn't cost me too much to get you microchipped.
That's true.
So
She
I
always
know
knows
you
where I
are.
am. Always. Because she's obsessed with me. Why are you so obsessed with me?
That's it from us today.